Hi, I'm Dave Wurzel, and you're watching Bookshelf. And on Bookshelf, we're going to take a look at a variety of books from a variety of categories. To help me take a look at some of these titles is Matt Makowski from Palos Heights Public Library, works in the Public Services Department. Matt, thank you for joining me today.
My pleasure.
I'm looking forward to this. A lot of really good titles here. We have a lot of fiction titles, and I snuck in a couple nonfiction. So I'm going to go first. I'm going to recommend a book in our category, Nonfiction, A Deep History of Earth. I chose this book by Thomas Halliday. It's called Other Lands, A Journey Through Earth's Extinct Worlds. And it came out in February. I find it interesting. It was a parallel book to another book I'd read earlier in the year, The Rise and Fall of Dinosaurs. It sounded similar. But anyway, according to The Economist magazine, Other Lands is described as immersive, embracingly ambitious. It rewinds the story of life on Earth from the mammoth steppe of the last ice age to the dawn of the multicellular creatures over 500 million years ago. Another publisher describes this book as the past is the past, but it does leave clues. And Thomas Halliday has used cutting-edge science to decipher them more completely than ever before. In Other Lands, Halliday makes 16 fossil sites burst to life on the page. This book is an exploration of the Earth as it used to exist, the changes that have occurred during its history, and the way that life has found to adapt or not. You know, I'm reading this book. I haven't finished it yet, and it is interesting. I know it sounds sciencey, but it's actually written for every person. It's a very readable book, and yeah, I feel comfortable recommending this thing right now. It's good.
It sounds pretty fascinating.
Yeah. Matt, how about you're up with the next category. I love the category name. This is going to be your job in the future, I think, to name all our categories. The category alone makes me want to read a book that would be in it. Monster movie fiction. What book have you got?
So this book is called The Kaiju Preservation Society by John Scalzi. I just finished an advanced copy of it, and I enjoyed it. It is John Scalzi's first novel since his Interdependency trilogy, and it is set basically when COVID is just starting. So it begins when lockdowns are just about to start hitting. Our main character, Jamie Gray, she lives in New York City. She just lost her job and ends up stuck as a food delivery person through, you know, those food delivery apps. But she delivers to an old friend who happens to need a last-minute grunt to handle things during their next field visit with an animal rights organization, as he calls it. And Jamie, eager to do anything, immediately signs on. And from there, it definitely goes some places.
So I think you gave us a clue there, as he calls it. This is going to be something else or more than that, right?
Correct, correct. So, you know, you may have heard the term kaiju before. It's what they used to describe Godzilla movies, all these monster movies. So that is a little hint as to what sort of animals they are preserving.
Okay, there's a monster element here. I
Yes.
like it. All right, this sounds good. All right, for me, I'm going to recommend a book in another nonfiction title in a category that I'm calling Impact of a Changing Climate. And in this category, I'm going to recommend a book that came out in February called Treeline, The Last Forest and the Future of Life on Earth. This book is by Ben Rollins. And I have the book. I've paged through it. I've read a little bit of it just to see if I like the author's writing style. Again, is this something that I can read? Is it, you know, who's it for? And I have read books by Elizabeth Colbert and Barry Lopez, and it's similar in style. So if you know who those authors are, this book might work for you. This book is covers how a publisher describes it is, for the last 50 years, the trees of the boreal forest have been moving north, okay, migrating with basically climate change. And so what Ben Rollins does with Treelines is he takes us along that kind of that critical frontier of a warming planet from Norway to Siberia, Alaska to Greenland, Canada to Sweden, to meet the scientists and the residents, and meet those trees that are confronting this huge geological change. And it's good. I mean, it's interesting, and again, it's written, it sounds, I think like the first book, kind of sciencey, but I think it's written for everybody. So I'm going to recommend Treeline, and I'm looking forward to finishing that book. I'm going to shift gears, and I'm going to recommend one of my favorite authors, actually, a pair here. This book is in a category that I'm going to call Suspense, Thriller, Mystery with an Archaeological Angle. This book is Diablo Mesa by Douglas Preston, Lincoln Child. I've read almost everything the two have written. I really enjoy the authors. For me, they're fun reads, and they're New York Times best-selling authors. And in this case, this is the third book in a series with Nora Kelly, who will be working with FBI agent Corey Swanson. And let me kind of give you a book publisher description of this. Lucas Tappan, a wealthy and eccentric billionaire and founder of the Icarus Space Systems, approaches the Santa Fe Archaeological Institute with an outlandish proposal to finance a careful and scientific excavation of the Roswell incident site where a UFO is alleged to have crashed in 1947. A skeptical Nora Kelly, to her great annoyance, is called in to task with this job. Her excavation at that site uncovers 2 murder victims buried there, and mystery, suspense, thriller with archaeological angle ensues. So,
very good. Yeah, those two always put out, you know, reliable mystery stories. So
to me, I would call them fun reads. Maybe that's not, but they read fast, and they're a lot of suspense and mystery. They're good.
Yeah,
unique angles in them
for sure.
How about a few more February titles? Man, I think you're going to take the next 2 for us.
Yes, first, The Swimmers by Julie Otsuka. This one is a novel about what happens to a group of obsessed recreational swimmers when a crack appears at the bottom of their local pool. It has been described as a tour de force of economy, precision, and emotional power from a best-selling award-winning author.
Yeah, and I've heard there's been a lot of preview of this book, that this is, you know, very anticipated, exciting. I know it's recently out, getting a lot of good press.
It is, it is. Next up, Moonwitch Spider King by Marlon James. So this is the second book in his trilogy. It's a fantasy trilogy that has been described as kind of an African Lord of the Rings, I guess. So using more of an African kind of mythology. In this one, the main character is Sagalan the Moon Witch, who in the first book proved a worthy adversary to Tracker as they clashed across a mythical African landscape in search of a mysterious boy who disappeared. In the second installment, Sagalan takes center stage and gives her account of what happened to the boy, how she plotted and fought, triumphed and failed as she looked for him.
It sounds good. I especially like your comparison to the Lord of the Rings. I mean, that kind of piqued my interest. I like the new setting, African mythology.
Yeah, you know, a lot of these fantasy books are kind of Lord of the Rings-esque. Yeah. So I like it when they take on a different sort of setting.
And I know you're planning on reading this book, but you're going to do it when that third one comes out, and you're going to cruise through the trilogy.
Yeah. It takes so long for them to come out that I don't want to forget what happens. Yeah. So I'll just read them back to back to back.
Good plan. Yeah. It's a good plan. All right, I'm going to recommend the next couple titles for us. The first one is Wild Irish Rose by Reese Bowen, another New York Times best-selling author. In this case, she's working in partnership with her daughter, Clara Broyles, but they're still working with their Molly Murphy Sullivan series. So a mystery in that series, and incredibly popular, something I think for readers to look forward to. The next book I'm going to recommend is Violetta by Isabella Allende. This book described, and again, this book is recently out, tells the epic story of Violetta Duval, a woman whose life spans 100 years and bears witness to the greatest upheavals of the 20th century through the eyes of a woman whose unforgettable passion, determination, and sense of humor carry her through a lifetime of upheaval. An epic that is both fiercely inspiring and deeply emotional. And I've talked to people, I have not read this, I've talked to people who have, and I know it's getting good reviews, and the people I've talked to who've read it really liked it so far.
Yeah.
So, Matt, what have you got for us?
Next up is Black Cake by Charmaine Wilkerson. This is a debut novel. It's always exciting to see fresh voices. 2 estranged siblings must set aside their differences to deal with their mother's death and her hidden past. A journey of discovery that takes them from the Caribbean to London to California and ends with her famous black cake.
I got to tell you, that description alone between whatever the story is about, that it went from the Caribbean to London to California, and then a black cake. Yeah, I'm going to have to take a look at this one.
Definitely sounds interesting.
What else do you have for us?
The Violin Conspiracy by Brendan Slocum. This one is described as a riveting page-turner about a black classical musician's desperate quest to recover his lost violin on the eve of the most prestigious musical competition in the world.
And again, a very interesting kind of premise. I think reading them, like, oh, okay, maybe, maybe not, but I know that this is, again, a very good book. I've heard from other sources, very popular.
Very well reviewed, very well liked.
Very well written. The next book is The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley, another best-selling author. I love the description the Parade magazine used for this book. If you're familiar with, they say, as you patiently await season 2 of Only Murders in the Building, so if you're familiar with that series, TV series, you might want to cozy up with Lucy Foley's latest whodunit. Book list described it as exceedingly clever. So from the New York Times bestselling author of the guest list comes a new locked room mystery, and this one's set in a Paris apartment building in which every resident has something to hide. It sounds good. I was a fan of Only Murders in the Building, so I'm going to have to take a look at this one.
Yeah, Lucy Foley is definitely a hot author right now, and that combined with an Only Murders reference sounds pretty good.
Yeah, good tie in there. So those are some February titles, recently out. And let's take a look at some March titles. Some of these may be out, some of these might be coming out in the next week or so. And Matt, you've got a couple titles for us.
Yeah, first up is A Sunlit Weapon by Jacqueline WINSPEAR. This is the latest Maisie Dobbs mystery. And in this one, there is a series of attacks on British pilots, and they lead beloved heroine Maisie Dobbs into a mystery involving First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt.
So I've only read one Maisie Dobbs book. It was really good. I liked it. Interesting characters. I love the time period, and now the time with Eleanor Roosevelt. There's a good mix going on here.
For sure. Definitely good historical mysteries.
And you've got another one. Now this would be another, but this would be contemporary, I think, right?
Correct. The Recovery Agent by Janet Ivanovich. Of course, Janet Ivanovich, #1 New York Times bestselling author. She returns here with the launch of a blockbuster new series that blends wild adventure, hugely appealing characters, and pitch-perfect humor, proving once again why, according to the New York Times, she is the most popular mystery writer alive.
Okay. So it sounds good, and obviously she's very popular.
Yeah.
A really good writer. Maybe another fun read there. I'm going to recommend another book here by, again, another author who's very popular. He's got several books out, and that's Shadows Reel by C.J. Box. This book is actually number 22 in a series. It follows Wyoming game warden Joe Pickett and his wife, Mary Beth, and they make separate discoveries that put the Pickett family in the pair of crosshairs of a killer in this thrilling new mystery by this author. So that might be something to check out if you're a mystery fan or if you've read C.J. Box, his books before. One more book I'm going to recommend to you that I don't think the authors need any help, but the premise sounds interesting, the source is interesting. That's Run, Rose, Run by James Patterson and Dolly Parton. Yes, I said Dolly Parton and James Patterson. From America's most beloved superstar and its greatest storyteller comes a thriller about a young singer-songwriter on the rise and on the run and determined to do whatever it takes to survive. Putting these two together, Dolly Parton working with James Patterson, seems like a good idea.
Yeah. And Dolly Parton, of course, beloved, and James Patterson's previous team-ups with Bill Clinton actually turned out to be pretty good, so I'm curious to see what they come up with.
Yeah, this should be an interesting read, a good read. So that's our February, March. Let's take a look at, you're going to give us a sneak preview of a couple titles out of coming out in April. You can give us two. The first one you put in a category called, and I love the category again, this is why you win the award for the creativity, historical and future science fiction all in one book. What have you got?
Yes, so the next book by Emily St. John Mandel is called The Sea of Tranquility. And, she is the award-winning author of Station 11 and The Glass Hotel. And she returns this time with a novel of art, love, and plague that takes the reader from Vancouver Island in 1912 to a dark colony on the moon 500 years later, unfurling a story of humanity across centuries and space.
Wow. I mean, that's a stretch. It's very expansive. I read Station 11. I think you did too.
Yes.
I liked the book.
Oh yeah, very popular.
Yeah.
And yeah, she's an excellent author, so we're
Okay.
See what she does here.
This looks like an interesting read. And then you've got another great category here. You put this in the Chicago Fun category. What are you recommending?
This is a book called Marrying the Ketchups by Jennifer Close. She's the author of Girls in White Dresses. This one is an irresistible comedy of manners about 3 generations of a Chicago restaurant family and the deep-fried, beer-battered, cream cheese frosted love that feeds them all. And it sounds interesting.
Sounds quirky.
Yeah.
The title alone is interesting and entertaining.
Yeah.
All right. Matt, thank you very much. A lot of good titles here. Thank you for time to coordinate this for us. I'm Dave Wurzel, and you've been watching Bookshelf. Thank you for watching, and good